We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. This is the Game of Inches podcast on the Mayflower Sports Network. I'm Andrew, joined by Jake and Carmine Bianco, WT on Twitter. Carmine is a good buddy of mine, also a coworker over at Wager Talk. He is a soccer betting expert, but also does hockey as well with me and plenty of other sports. We're happy to have you on, Carmine. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's Friday, man. I'm excited because Andrew, you know how I am. Fridays lead into Saturday soccer, Sunday soccer, and pretty soon we'll be talking about the other football as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's last year we had so many sports going on in the summer with kind of the delay with getting all the leagues getting going, and now it's been not too much. So I'm pumped to have EPL action back and football ready to go in full force, but. I guess we won't take too long in starting from the way back a little bit, but I do want to ask you some questions that I don't really know as much about yourself. And I guess number one, I'll ask you how long you've been a soccer fan, if you've played it, how long you've been kind of covering it from a professional standpoint. Tell us your history of soccer.
I think soccer, or I'm going to refer to it many times during this segment as football.
Feel free.
I mean, yeah, it's something that I grew up on watching. Obviously my parents immigrated here from Italy. I'm north of Toronto, but my dad obviously a huge football fan. He was a Roma fan. His team in our family, there's 4 boys, and each one liked a different team. I'm a Juventus fan, so Sunday mornings were spent watching. We're watching, the soccer here. Him Roma, me Juventus, and got into it more from a betting point of view, probably late in high school and first couple of years of university. More and more, you saw sports books coming into the market. Obviously, a lot of the online stuff coming, and one thing that I really enjoyed is books like Betfair that came into the Canadian market. And there were exchanges where essentially you could take an opinion on a side, and then if you had enough money in your account, you could offer up odds on the other 2 options. As you know, soccer is a 3-way line betting option with team A, team B, or a draw. So if you could offer up odds on the other 2 and essentially do what's called greenboarding, which is regardless of the result, Andrew, you win. So you're putting up a lot of money to win a little, but you're guaranteed a return on your investment if you greenboard the game.
Yeah, that's I honestly had no idea that that's something you could even do. Just getting into the betting aspect of it. What are just some of the things that you look for? Like, I'm a big football bettor too. I love it. It's probably the thing I would bet most. Currently on a hiatus. I've been on like a 8-month hiatus. It's actually been kind of nice, but with football returning around the corner here, actually, some of the leagues already started up. I know Serie A starts tomorrow. You must be excited for that one. Just what are some of the things that you look for in the markets, and kind of just some of the lines and things that you look out for?
Yeah, one of the things, and this is one of the things I kick myself even after years of doing this, and we're probably going on 30 years. I am obviously much older than the 2 of you, but it's one of those things that you acquire over sort of a lifetime of doing this, and early on, when you get into this, you're going to lose. Unfortunately, there are going to be times where you're going to go bust, and hopefully you learn from your mistakes and get better from there. I made a lot of mistakes early on. One of the mistakes I still make is sometimes you will look, and I'm sure this has probably happened to you guys on occasion. You look at a game and the line does not seem right to you on the team that you're looking at, and you just don't take the game. Well, there's got to be a reason for that number being where it is. So with social media being where it is right now, we have a lot of tools available to us, a lot of analytical tools. Over the last 5-6 years, I've been using a lot of my soccer comes from not only statistics I've put together, but also a very good analytical company called Opta. A lot of the big leagues use Opta, and I have access to an account. So, I can look at a lot of post-game stats and a lot of stats for goal expectancy sort of moving forward. And when you see sort of a team underperforming, you know that arc is eventually going to cross back to where it should be with that team. And it's just finding the time to get on a team as they move. And it's where I talk to Andrew a lot about getting on a team at the beginning of a streak instead of getting on a winning streak, instead of getting on a team towards the middle or end of that winning streak. You can make a lot more money doing so, and it's just finding the advanced stats for those.
One thing that I'm jealous about soccer handicappers, soccer bettors, and for you in particular, I know that you're an analytical guy. I know that you have websites, you have access to information, but let's be honest, Carmine, let's not undervalue your knowledge of the sport as well, and the teams and players and stuff. So I kind of wanted to ask you how you manage to stay so in touch with all kinds of different leagues. And I guess I'll ask you a follow-up to that one as well, with what is the one you know the most about, and what are the leagues you kind of just mostly crunch numbers with? Because some days at the website, I'll see you have a play on a game, and I have never heard of that team in my whole entire life.
It's very rare. It is very rare that you see me sort of venture outside of the 5 big leagues in Europe, and that being obviously the best league, which is the Premier League, and then the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and League One. If I do, it'll be in a couple other leagues where something like Netherlands, where they have the Eredivisie, or some of the leagues that I will avoid. You're very rarely seeing me play them, and it's just because I haven't done well with them. Is like Portugal's Premier League. For some reason, I zig when the games zag, and at some point you just cut them loose. But some of the secondary leagues I'll stay away from, and even in England, I very rarely get involved in any of the lower leagues, like the second league, the Championship League, or League One, League Two. I will get involved in some of the competitions, but again, Andrew, I think it's information more than anything else. You sort of learn as the season goes that you have to take each game independent of what happened last week or the week before. Sometimes there's overreaction, much like the EPL. I think there's a bit of overreaction to round one last week with some of the numbers that came out this week for tomorrow and Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, I feel like I'm really bad for that. I actually have had some success with the Portuguese league. I'm a fan of betting the J League as well. That one's a good, we call it, I guess it'd be a D-Gen league, nice and early in the morning in case you're up, or you want to get up early and catch your bet. But just as like a soccer fan or a football fan, what's just some of the things that you're excited about for this season? I know one of the things that I already loved to see was watching the EPL, the fans being back. That's something I think that's huge for the game, and it's actually made me even more excited to watch the game. But just what are some of the things that you're excited for as a fan?
Yeah, first of all, Jake, though, as far as like the J League, you're definitely right. It's a good DJ one.
Yeah.
The problems with some of those leagues at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning is, and Andrew will tell you this, if I have a bet on a game, I need to watch the game. So I can't put something in and then wake up in the morning and see whether I won or lost.
I need to
sort of, and it's the worst because, you know what I mean? Like if these games are on or streaming on one of the websites or like Bet365, my wife's asleep and she just sees this light flashing at my face, and it's because I'm holding up my phone and I'm watching the game at like 3:30 in the morning. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's South Korea," right? So it's one of those. It's one of those ones.
That was like when I did the Korean baseball last year, and Carmine was doing Korean soccer.
Yeah, it's we had to. It's what the pandemic, and there's still a lot of information out there, which made it a little easier to not only put up a play, but make sure you played it yourself as well. To your point of the leagues, absolutely what you mentioned. Fans in the stands, obviously now with fans returning. Across England into the games and across all of Europe. The one immediate change is in England, the games are now back to the regular routine that we're used to. If we're talking Eastern time, there's the 7:30 morning game in the UK, and then there's 4 or 5 games at 10 o'clock. And then there's, that 12:30 game, and then we flip over to Sunday, and it's the same thing. Whereas during the pandemic, when there were no fans in the stands, they staggered the game. So we had a game starting at 7, a game starting at 8, another one at 9. It would be like the NFL staggering their games on a Sunday to start every hour. If you're a football fan, you hate it. You want to see about 5-6 games starting at 1 p.m. Eastern and about another 4 or 5 starting at 4 p.m. From a betting point of view, it's what you enjoy.
Yeah, that'd be really nice because it kind of sucks with soccer having that. And I was talking with someone earlier today about last year with the NHL bubble, how nice it was that we had a game at like 1, game at 3, game at 5, game at 8. It was just so separated that we were able to see everything all together, really, which is what I really liked. Taking a look at just this week or the English Premier League as a whole, we want to keep this show about, football in general, but we can give out some betting stuff as well. But on a whole, obviously it's a long season of English Premier League. What are you looking at as a whole? I know you do a lot of future bets and predictions, but are there any teams that you think might surprise some of us, or teams that you think are obvious that might not do as well? What are you kind of thinking for some sleepers and some top dogs this year?
Last week was obviously a little surprising in the sense of usually newly promoted teams don't fare well in the first in the first weekend of the season. If you go back the last decade, the last 10 years, the 3 promoted teams on opening weekend have gone 3 wins, 7 draws, 20 losses. They haven't had the greatest of starts. But last week we saw Watford win 3-2 at home against Aston Villa. And we saw on the Friday, the first game of the season, Brentford knock off Arsenal at home 2-0. And those are a couple of games where maybe the final scores and things that happened within the game or before the game had a lot to do with it. Obviously, Arsenal were missing their 2 strikers, Aubameyang and Lacazette, were both missing with illness. They may actually miss this weekend as well, too. I don't think it's going to matter because they're playing Chelsea and likely going to lose that game. But Brentford, a mistake on the first goal by Arsenal and 1-0 and away and running, and they won 2-0. And then the Watford game, they were pretty much outplayed if you look at the analytical numbers, but they scored 3 quick ones in the first half and then held on late to win that game 3-2. I don't see either one of those teams faring well this weekend, so it's something to sort of look at. Another team is Leeds. Andrew, they were absolutely
that's my team. That's my team, Leeds.
They were run out of the building last week at Old Trafford 5-1. It's one of those games where the final analytical numbers, the expected goals, while the final scoreline was 5-1, the expected goals were 1.60 for Man United and 0.067 for Leeds. So Leeds were pretty much where they should have been. United were well above the arc of where they should have been. Some fantastic goals, and one goal by one of the 3 goals by Bruno Fernandes that had last season's VAR been in place, it would have been ruled offside. This season's VAR is a little different in that if the 2 lines for the offside overlap just a little bit, the goal is still good. So last year, where you would see fans on social media showing a guy's toe and the call is offside, and his toe is offside, that toe is now onside for all intensive purposes. So they've made some changes in the Premier League to the VAR rules this year, even penalties in the box. If there's just minimal contact and a player goes down looking for a penalty, the ref can go to the screen and rule it incidental or not a penalty. So and even the handball rule is a little different this year. So kudos to the Premier League being one of the first to take steps in the right direction and making VAR a little more acceptable amongst the fan base.
Yeah, you touched on them changing the rules for VAR. I actually really I don't know if you watch MLS at all, but the MLS VAR, I think, is the most fluid for the game. They don't really bring too many things back unless it's blatantly obvious. But just to go to my question here, you touched on Man United there, and you also kind of brought Chelsea up. Just with those clubs in particular, had huge transfer windows, in my opinion. I don't think Man United's done. I think they got another midfielder maybe coming in. But What does that mean for the league? Like for me, I like that. I'm a Liverpool fan, so obviously I want us to win. I want us to be at the top of the league every year. But it's exciting to know that this year it's not just going to be us versus City to see who's going to win the league. What do you make of that as like a betting standpoint, especially where Andrew said you're a big futures guy? How do you kind of weed through that and try to narrow down who you're going to take to win the league on a futures, or how you get to those decisions?
Yeah, kudos to Liverpool. A great season 2 years ago, and obviously a great Champions League 1 year removed from that one. It's for them, I expect a top three finish at some point. Where they finish within the top three, I'm not really sure. But obviously having Virgil van Dijk back is a huge gain for this team. Gomez back as well too. It's just they'll be a much better team. It's just, for me, I think it's Klopp, as far as Liverpool goes, figuring out what he's going to do sort of with that trident up front, whether it's going to be Mane, Salah, and Diego Jota as the three starting, and Firmino coming off the bench, or just rotating the four. But they're going to have a much better season than they did last year. I don't think people realized when you take away the center backs on a team, what it does to a team, especially in the Premier League, that have so many teams that are just clinical with their attack. Man City made the moves. We have to see what's going to happen with this Kane one. Obviously, Kane didn't travel with Tottenham to Portugal for the first Europa Conference Championship, that new tournament that they have, the many tournaments that UEFA has, and it's uncertain whether he's going to play this weekend, where the team travels to Wolverhampton. Nuno Espirito making his return, the former manager there. We don't know if he's going to be in the lineup. I think he wants to go. The bottom line, he wants to play Champions League football, and the only way to do it is for City to come up on their offer, and maybe they offer 140, 150 million, and that gets it done. We'll have to see what the plans are as far as Tottenham go. The pick that I made was Chelsea. I took Chelsea. I put my money on Chelsea at 5-1. They're down to about 3.5-1 now, and that's mainly because of the fact that they picked up from Inter Milan. They picked up Romelu Lukaku is back. He's going to add to that scoring. So where Timo Werner failed last year, Lukaku is going to. He's in absolutely fantastic shape. If you see this guy, he just absolutely, the nutritionist that he got when he arrived in Italy, and they put him on a different routine of what he was eating and how he was training. He just looks like a completely different man. If you see what he looked like when he left Man United to what he looks like now returning to Chelsea, it's unbelievable.
I find scheduling is really interesting for each different sport, and you and I always talk about on our shows together, Carm. What can you tell us about the scheduling format for the EPL for people that don't follow the league too much? I know it's a very long season. I know there's Champions League and those type of tournaments in between the seasons. Have you taken a look at it as a large scale for many of the teams? And I'm sure you do from a betting standpoint, but what can you tell us about the schedule for the Premier League?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at it from much like I do in NHL, Andrew, where I will try and map out a team's next 6 to 7 games to see which are, there are times where some games are more important to a team than others, and and this comes into it when some of the other competitions start, that some of these teams that aren't going to be top 6 teams or teams that are vying for top 6, but more so the ones that are looking to avoid being one of the bottom 6 teams and ultimately one of the bottom 3 teams that get relegated. You will find games where with a condensed schedule, because of like the EFL Cup and the FA Cup or any of these other ones, where they're going to have to play those midweek games. And if it's a midweek game ahead of an important 3-point game on the weekend against another team they may face a relegation battle for, you may see them with a watered down lineup in that midweek game, and that's where you sort of look to play against them. The condensed schedules comes into play a lot, and this is with the teams across all 5 leagues that are in Champions League. When the group stages have started in earnest, and these teams are vying for one of those top 2 spots to make it into the knockout stages, the weekend before, I'm very leery of laying any type of a goal line with a team like let's say a Man City, who might be favored by a goal and a half, because you don't know who's going to be in that lineup and starting.
Right.
You don't know if players are going to be rested ahead of an important game. If Man City is playing, let's say they draw into a group with PSG, and have to go to France on a Tuesday and play PSG, and they're playing Burnley on a Saturday and are favored by a goal and a half or 2 goals, I'm not touching that, because you don't know if who's going to be in that. If Kevin De Bruyne is going to be on the bench, if
Right.
a player like Foden or Raheem Sterling, you don't know if they're going to be regulars within that lineup. Now, their bench is great. They could probably field a starting 11 that could finish in the top 10 in the Premier League. But still, do you want to be laying -2 with a team that you are unsure who they're going to play?
Yeah, since we're touching on the scheduling of the EPL specifically, how do you feel about betting during the Christmas break, where most of the other leagues are shut down for what is it? I think it's like a month there. They're shut down, and the EPL runs all the way through. And those, I find specifically through that time, those games come very thick and fast. The results are very unpredictable. Teams get hot, teams get cold. And I feel like a lot of those games in that particular time can decide a club season basically on which way they're going to go. In betting, how do you manage to get through that period where there's like, I think it's like, there's like a 7-day period where most teams play 3 times. Like, that must be really hard to kind of gauge what you're going to bet on and who's going to do what.
Yeah, it is. And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, but we'll talk with this one first, with what to do with Boxing Day in the EPL. But definitely, you see these teams playing 3 games. A lot of them want to be with their families. Sometimes the focus isn't 100% there. And we've seen over the last few years where you'll find one or two of those games where a team is like on the 3-way betting line plus 400, plus 500, and they win the game, and you're in shock. You're like, how did this happen? And it is that condensed schedule. Players, sometimes it happens in that third game in 7 days where they're literally off after that and off to see their families. You've got to be very leery of what you're betting in and around that time, even though they could be games of extreme importance to top 4 spots or even bottom 3 spots. That's where, again, we have so much of information available to us, and the Premier League being one of the most reported on ones. You can find interviews on YouTube from the press conferences on the Friday or Thursday from the coaches after a training session. You can find information on all of the PL sites that are out there. There's just a ton of information. And if you're going to be putting your hard-earned money on these games, you should educate yourself as much as possible, because that'll bring us back to making mistakes early on in your betting career and going broke. It's going to happen. You can minimize that by the information. Information's your friend.
I want to reward just some of the people that catch this before tomorrow, whether it's on YouTube or our Facebook page or even through Periscope, watching on the rewind, and pretty much just try and give some people some winners, Carm. So let's pull up our trustworthy Wager Talk live odds page here and see if there's anything that sticks out that you can give us, just a free play or anything that you're recommending for our viewers for tomorrow. We have the Wager Talk live odds. You can use it for all sports. What do you have for us, Carm?
Well, if we had started this show a couple of hours earlier, Andrew, I would have been telling you to take Red Bull Leipzig today. It was a great spot for them returning home off a 1-0 loss in round 1 of the Bundesliga. And they got the job. Well, they're getting the job done. It's 4-0 right now in the 75th minute. But talking about wagers that are already happening means nothing.
You can't go back in time, man. Come on.
Absolutely, you can't go back in time, which is why we're going to look at something a little different. And we're going to look at the Brighton game, Brighton-Watford. I mentioned earlier, that a couple teams, Brentford and Watford, got week one wins. Both of them were on the wrong end of the analytical numbers and now hit the road for games. Brighton's a very tough team. They are going to play you tough for 90 minutes. This is one where the line early in the week I thought was undervalued, and there was a little overreaction to Watford winning 3-2 against Aston Villa. The line's now up to where it probably should be. I had it priced at about 150. It's at 145. I'm seeing right now on Brighton, and that is the late game on Saturday. And I believe they get the win. I would definitely lay that price with Brighton here.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Brighton too. They play a good style of football, so I might actually make my return to the gambling scene on that pick there, Carmine. So we'll see how that goes.
All right.
But I just want to ask you, as just like another kind of casual fan, what do you make of the? We kind of touched on it quickly before Andrew joined in, but the whole Messi situation going to PSG. I know you said you were watching the game before we hopped on there. Just kind of a quick breakdown of what you make it on, maybe on Barcelona's end, how they could let something like that happen, and just kind of what to look forward to maybe with Messi going to PSG.
Yeah, it's Barcelona's created this problem for themselves over the years, with the contracts they've given players, and they probably could have survived for another couple of years the way they were going, but unfortunately the pandemic hit. No fans in the stands. A lot of teams took financial hits, Barca being one of them, and they're a little over $1 billion in debt. There was no way they were going to be able to, while they thought they could finance his or pay him. The contract still has to be approved by La Liga, and La Liga obviously said no to that. They're operating right now. Obviously, Piqué, one of their players, I think, took a pay cut in order for 3 of the other contracts of the new signees to be allowed in by La Liga. Memphis Depay, I think, was one of them. I can't. The other 2, their names slip me. I think one was Aguero, and I'm not sure who the third one was. But with Messi's, and they're operating at 102% of their income, which is obviously they're operating at a loss. With Messi, they would have been operating at 113. So the league said no, and there was really only one place he could end up. I don't think, for as much as Man City would have loved him there, I'm not sure how he would have fit in at Man City, to be honest with you. They've got Kevin De Bruyne. That's who they need. They need a clinical finisher up front, and that's why they're trying to get Harry Kane. So it would have been good to see him reunited with Pep, but he was only ever going to end up at PSG, unfortunately. We'll see how he does. He's not in the lineup today. He will be in the lineup for next week's game.
Carm, I mentioned earlier on when you brought up Leeds, I don't know if I even ever told you and all the times that we've spoken that they're my favorite team. And I used to play as Chelsea when I played like years and years ago, played a lot of FIFA on PlayStation. And I was like, oh, Chelsea's my team. Like, they're really good. But then I was like, no, I have to find like a different, like unique team to cheer for. And of course, who doesn't love betting on overs? I mean, let's be honest here. Overs are fun to bet on. So Leeds, as a team that was fun to watch and would always go over the total, that's how they became my favorite team. I'll be completely honest with you. That's what's fun. But over the years, obviously, as I've actually, taken a deep dive into the stats and the matchups and the players, I think that Leeds is actually, undervalued going into the next couple of match days. And I'm on them tomorrow as well, as it sounds like you are. And that number has dropped. Yeah,
it has. I'm still a little confused by that number. You know what I mean? I thought Leeds should be closer to even money. I get it. Everton was a very good away side last year. Last year was, if you looked, I think, at their splits, they struggled at home and they picked up a ton of points on the road.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that'll.
I was going to say, I think I saw a stat the other day. They had the most away points in the Premier League last year. So that's pretty crazy to go from, most away points and not being able to win at home.
Yeah, it's crazy in that sense. It's obviously logic. Logic says it's usually the other way around, where a team collects the points at home, and then at least for maybe the bottom 10 teams in the league, and Everton's not considered a bottom 10 team by any stretch of the imagination, but that the bottom 10 teams will look to steal points on the road by playing defensive games. Which is why, with a lot of those teams, if you take that premise, sometimes you just look to play unders with teams like Brighton on the road, or a team like, let's say, Watford, or any of these other teams that will look just to pick up single points on the road are great, and then pick up 3 at home and hopefully survive when you hit that sort of magic number in the EPL of points needed. But getting back to it, yeah, I like the way Leeds plays. They're usually very well managed. And they will attack you. They do it a lot better at home, but they play the same style. And as good as Everton played last week, I think, or the final scoreline might show, they didn't look very good in the first half of that game, and in the second half, Southampton just didn't show up. A majority of, I think, the final numbers, I had it written down here. The final number for Everton, I had it written down here. Sorry, the final score line for Everton, as far as their expected goal numbers, were all attained in the second half, where they literally blitzed Southampton. But in the first half, they didn't show up a similar performance this week as last week. We'll see them lose because Leeds will take advantage of the opportunities. Obviously, that 5-1 game, I said the scoreline isn't a real indication of how Leeds played in that game. They weren't as bad defensively as the 5 goals, but at the end of the day, that's all people see is a 5-1 scoreline.
Yeah, Leeds are super interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen their training videos with the murder ball, with the 70 minutes, no rules, balls continuously in play. It's pretty crazy. I can see why they're able to run for so long. But I just wanted to ask you, since we've been so heavy on the EPL, and Andrew told me you're a Juventus fan, I just kind of wanted to ask you, it's been something I've been kind of like talking about with my friends that like really enjoy football. It's kind of the state of Serie A, like what's going on. There's not much money right now in the league. It seems like a lot of the clubs are selling off their big players. Juventus are usually very active in the transfer market. This summer, it's been kind of quiet for them on their end. Just give me a kind of a breakdown of what's going on over there right now and why the league seems to be kind of struggling financially. Obviously, I know COVID's a part of it, but It seems like in the last few years, like the Serie A, just the clubs haven't been spending and the money hasn't been there like somewhere like the EPL or maybe now like the Bundesliga a little bit commercially.
Yeah, while they're never going to reveal unless it comes out somehow, their financial situations, I honestly believe that the top 7 teams are likely broke, that they don't have the money, and maybe it's because of the pandemic, maybe it's overspending on contracts, and they don't have anywhere close to a television contract like the Premier League has. La Liga is trying to bring in different companies to give them, sort of a
bailout of sorts.
Bailout or more exposure. They tried to schedule actual league games that would be played in the U.S. and played in Florida. And that was nixed by some of the clubs that didn't want to do it. So, that's where the EPL sort of the Premier League rules with the amount of money that they make. The Italian league just doesn't. And then you have teams like Juventus who they actually treat the league and the football season as something to try and make profit from. You'll see them bring in players on free transfers. Who then have good seasons and they just turn around and sell them. A lot of the players who come over, like Aaron Ramsey, free transfer. When they brought in Pogba from Man United, I think they only paid, it wasn't a free transfer. I think they only paid like 12. It was under 10. I thought it was about 10 to 12 million. And then they turn around and sold him back for 100 million. Right. So to them, it's a business. The same with, when they acquire Gonzalo Higuain from Napoli, and that's a deal that normally doesn't get made between two hated rivals, but they paid somewhere close to 70 to 80 million dollars split over 2 years, and then turn around and loaned him out to AC Milan, and I think it was Chelsea So they made their money back just in loans. So they look at it more as a business. Try and make a deep run in Champions League. The farther you go, the more money you make. Obviously, the teams that can make it to a Champions League final and win it, along with sort of the market share and the revenue that comes on top of the actual the bonuses for making it to the final, are in excess of 130, 140 million. I think it's euros or pounds. I'm not sure what the figures are in, but the market shares. Juve 3 years ago came away with 120 million. I think they lost in the quarterfinals, right? So there's a lot of money out there.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly shout out, since we are talking about a good amount of betting, of course, specifically betting on football or soccer, known as here in North America. You can use our link below in the description on Facebook or YouTube for our sports interaction link. Support the podcast, support the show, and sign up, bet with Sports Interaction. 100% deposit bonus up to $125. Of course, with betting, all the single event tickets being legalized in Canada, betting certainly going in the right direction here in Canada. And I know Carmine and I are really happy about it. Jake and I are happy about it. And hopefully in Halifax and where Carmine is in Ontario, we'll start seeing it be a little more mainstream. Maybe get a sports book here or there. That might be a little optimistic, but check out that link below. If you're interested in betting, you've kind of been hesitant to do it before. Sports Interaction, they have great limits. They'll set you guys up. It's very user-friendly, very easy to use. In our description, you can find that link for Sports Interaction. But Carm, we kind of want to just get some stories out of you, man. We kept you for around 35 minutes. I know you're a storytelling man. Let's see where we can go with you. You've told us some funny stories about soccer, gambling.
When Jake was mentioning the Boxing Day games, Andrew, this was one of the funniest ones, and I had to take advantage of it. It's the only way you could do it, but it was the Boxing Day, and the games were played at 10 a.m. in the morning, as normal. All the games were played, and I remember saying, I'm going to go. Proline had just started. It was only out maybe a few months. And I went to my regular store I would go to, was just literally a block away from the house. And I chat with the guy. And I asked him to print out the game list. And he prints it out. And all the EP games that finished were showing as 1 p.m. So I said to him, I go, Eric, these games are still on here. I filled out a ticket with the results that I knew already, and I marked the box for like $100 on it, and he ran it through, and the ticket came out. And I'm like, oh my God. So I told him, he locks the door, and he literally runs the ticket through 50 times, because his the max that he could do or sell was $5K. And we literally split the profits. I didn't have to give him a dollar. And I went and the tickets were never voided. I collected. I had to go down to the lottery office in downtown Toronto. I collected the money, and the OLG said in their because it all came out. The OLG said in something that they caught it early, and they closed it off. At the time, they didn't have the shut-off system like they have now, where a game comes off the board and it comes off the board. It was new to them, and they said that they only lost a few $1,000s across Canada on that mistake.
You must have caught it super early.
They lost a lot more than that.
Yeah, you must have caught it super early, because they must have lost a lot of money.
No, I think their statement was a false statement. They're not trying to tell people how much money they in fact lost on that, because a lot of people were talking about it, right? So yes.
To be honest with you, though, I actually have respect for the OLG. We have the ALC here, and I don't even know if they would have done that for us. I mean, I actually have respect for them that they did that, because just as easily they could have said screw you and just said like, hey, that game I already played. But if it's like the saying, if a card laid is a card played. I mean, if that ticket printed off, then you should be allowed to cash your money.
Yes. Definitely. And then the only other, and I don't play Proline anymore. I don't play any of those games. But then I did it. I thought it was cool to have some additional action on like.
I thought you played Kuno.
Ludos. No. But they had this. They came out with this weird bet at one time, and they got rid of it after about a month. And it wasn't because they were losing money. It was just a bet that confused a lot of people. And what it was is that they gave you the whole week of the NHL. So teams playing 3 or 4 times. I think it was teams played 4 times in a week, 7 days. And you had to pick the exact order, first, second, and third of the teams that would have the most points in their games. And going into the Sunday, I had a very good chance to win if the Saturday, 4 different things had to happen. This team had to win in regulation time. This team had to lose. It was just one of those weird matrix scenarios is what it was. And I was leaving the next day on holiday. So what happened was I'm at a wedding and I'm looking at the results and I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. It goes into the last game, which is the game on the West Coast. And I need a team to lose in regulation time to not pick up a point. And they get scored on with like a minute left, and I end up winning. But you have no idea what you won because there's no calculated odds. It's a pool bet,
right?
So it's the amount of money that's bet into the pool. And so the next day, I'm checking the results online all night to see if it's on there on the site. Nothing's there. I'm like, I won a lot of money. I know I won a lot of money. And the next day, I drop off my car at my brother's place because he's going to drop us off at the airport. And I said to him, I go, I won the ticket. I don't know what I won. He goes, let's go to the lottery thing. So we go to the store. The guy runs it through the machine. He makes that noise. And the guy goes, dude, I can't give you this amount. You have to go downtown. And it was 18 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. On a $5 bet.
Oh, you only put $5 down.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, that's what the base wager was, a $5 wager.
Let me ask you this. How many times did you do it before you won that?
Well, it was only out there for a month. So I probably only played it. Probably played like a few different tickets on a weekend, but never more than like $20. So let's say 4 times, so probably didn't spend more than a couple $100 in a month. They got rid of it after a month.
What an investment.
Because there's probably enough people that complain that they couldn't figure out. It's kind of like the pool that you guys have out there for the NFL. Just pick the winner every week.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if you hit it and you've got a couple of long shots that win outright, win those games, you've seen those pools sometimes pay like $500,000 for a $5 wager. So
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's
just
crazy.
Just before we let you get out of here, I just want to ask you, who do you think is going to win the Champions League? I know it's far away. Early prediction, obviously PSG got better. City's looking like they're going to get better. Juventus hopefully can get back to some sort of glory. Liverpool's going to be back. What do you think? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I won't. And just looking quickly at the odds, I won't put any money on PSG, not because I don't think they can win, but tying up your money on a future that's plus 275, it just isn't worth it. Tying your money on even a Man City or a plus 350 isn't worth it. The value obviously lies in the other teams. You look at, let's say, Chelsea looking to repeat, plus 900. A team like Liverpool, again, getting their players back and having a healthy team this year, plus 900. And, the thing with, let's say, even like a team like Liverpool, and I know you're a fan, and it's not why I'm saying it, but if they are in very good shape come January, where the group stages will end the 9th of match day 6 is December the 9th for Champions League. And then they don't return again until February. If a team like Liverpool are in very good shape, both in the league and have advanced to the knockout stages, which starts in February, wouldn't put it past me on a team that normally doesn't do a lot at the transfer window in January of making a move to maybe solidify that midfield, bring somebody in. You just never know. It's a good position in. So I'd rather be on a team that is 9-1, that I know is going to make it into the knockout stages, and I know Liverpool will make it into the knockout stages, that you can sort of hedge out somewhere else along the way and make a little bit of money. I'm not going to take a plus 275 or plus 350 with PSG and Man City. As far as the Juve goes, it really is a pipe dream. It would have to be, it's a pipe dream. They're just they're putting together a young team, and we're talking about, because this will be Ronaldo's last obviously season with this team. I actually would have liked to have seen them move him somewhere and get the money and just save it for a future transfer. But with guys like Chiesa and now Locatelli and Weston McKennie, they've got a young team coming. And DeLitt, eventually it'll be out with the old and in with the new. There's 3 or 4 players that need to go after this coming season, but the future looks bright for them, but probably not for the next couple of years.
Mr. Carmine, part-time bookkeeper, full-time bettor, also a part-time chef, posting his lasagna videos on Twitter. True Italian. I appreciate him coming on. Good buddy of mine. And we'll have you on again, Carm, if you will, maybe a little bit later in the season to talk some more soccer or football in the EPL and Champions League as well. I want to remind everybody out there watching, not only check out our podcast, but also on YouTube. We're posting lots of content just on YouTube that is not on our podcast networks. Lots of UFC stuff, as well as Harry had James Lynch on. We had lots of great stuff from MMA analyst James Lynch, a lot of great clips out of him and predictions for lots of great fights coming up. So I want to thank Carmine for coming on, and this has been the Game of Inches podcast powered by Mayflower Sports.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Carmine.